More bunches missing. We think all the time.
And that's understandable now. If you think your last will and testament is the final say on where your worldly possessions will end up, you could be wrong, because bitter family battles and legal challenges can mean your intentions could very easily amount to nothing. Ronnie Lose explains what we all should keep in mind when it comes time to make a will.
I'd have to say that it was disbelief and confusion at first, and then followed by a fair bit of stress.
Whoever laughs last, laughs longest. And when it comes to leaving a will, it's often the ultimate in final punchlines. Or is it?
It's about the fact that it's either someone's last will and testimony, or it's not.
But there is nothing funny about the way Paul Palthe died, or the fiasco his final will has left his wife Janne and young daughter Katerina in.
Paul was diagnosed with a brain tumour in March of 2004, and he was very, very determined that he was going to beat it. Never a day went past, right up till probably just a couple of days before he died, that he wasn't going to beat it.
At 40, Paul Palthe's death was untimely, but he had the time to make it clear to his best friend and executor of his will, Mark Batzloff, what he wanted.
Very simple will, very straightforward. Just this is what I've got, this is who I want it to go to.
He was very clear in his will that only myself, his wife, and Philip, his brother, were named in the will, yes, and that's what Paul obviously thought his intentions were and what would be on it.
But wills are very rarely the last word that everybody thinks they are. Joanna Collins' mother's will was meant to be straightforward. Certainly her mother's intentions were clear.
The will said that she leaves her property, the house that we'd lived in for the last 15 years, to me.
We see many wills where people leave one of their children $100, something that can really only be seen as an insult.
Barrister Carolyn Spark makes her living defending and contesting wills, and you only have to have a look at her office to see there is plenty of work around.
Fundamentally, people should still make the will the way they want to, but they should just think twice about who they really owe a responsibility to in their lives.
Basically, if you decide to use your will as a lesson to, for instance, an estranged child or sibling and exclude them altogether, it may very well backfire. Not meeting expected responsibilities in your will is what often results in it being contested. And often the challenger doesn't pay to fight in court. The estate pays.
Ultimately, the question the court asks itself is, did you get it right when you made your will?
The reality is, if you have a responsibility to someone, be it a child or a spouse, you should provide for them in your will, whether you like them or not. Don't use your will to slap someone in the face.
The reason it can backfire on them is that it shows that they know and they understand that child is there.
But then again, when you think you're being fair, that doesn't always work either.
Not a day goes by that I don't think about Mum and what she'd say about what's happening.
Joanna Collins' mother decided her daughter should inherit the family home, where Joanna was still living.
I get 50% of her personal possessions and my brothers get 25% each, and I'm also to pay them $3,000 each within 12 months of the will being settled.
Pretty straightforward, yes? Well, no. A squabble has now started over the meagre estate. And then, of course, there are the things wills have absolutely no control over at all. Which brings us back to the case of Paul Palthe, who as a young man took out a life insurance policy with his mother as the beneficiary. A couple of decades on, he's a married man and a father of one. He was diagnosed with brain cancer. So in his will, he left the policy to his wife, Janne, hoping it would provide for them in his death. He was wrong.
He'd be absolutely ropeable. Financially, he had a plan, and financially I'm having to battle for $165,000 that he thought that I would have automatically got.
Wills have absolutely no power over life insurance policies. They go to whoever is named as the owner of the policy. In Paul's case, he named his mother all those years previous and never changed it. And superannuation is the same.
Superannuation is controlled ultimately by the trustee of the superannuation fund.
And they ultimately make a decision who they believe both needs and deserves your superannuation. So is there a way to avoid all this fighting and bickering? The good news is yes.
Try and figure out when you're going to die and give it all away.
A comforting thought. Not. Now, it's nice to have family around.